Okay. All right. So here we are for Voces Divisiones one-on-ones. Um, on this episode, we got my good longtime friend James Gonzales from my hometown, Robstown, Texas, who's now living in Vegas. But before we get into too much of an intro from me, I want to pass it on over to you, James, and just quick introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and what you're up to nowadays, and then we'll go back from there.
Sounds like a plan, bro. Well, thanks for having me, man. And it's always good to reconnect. I know it's been a long time, and we talk about early childhood, man. But my name is James Gonzales. From Robstown, Texas, man. Born and raised. Graduated from Robstown. Right now, currently living in Las Vegas, Nevada. I actually work in the downtown Las Vegas area on Fremont Street. A lot of people that have been to Vegas know that spot. I actually run a $26 million property called the Downtown Container Park. Comprised of like 28 to 32 local small businesses. Got some retail, some food and beverage. We have entertainment, we have music, we have yoga, we have a bunch of different events and stuff going on. And currently a family of four. Got my wife that I've been with for 17 years out of Flower Bluff in South Texas. And got two boys, man, 13 and 16 years old, man. Every time I say their ages, it makes me feel old. So that's kind of where I've been right now.
Nice. So downtown Vegas, so you're moving and shaking out there. And you've been out there for how long?
Been in Vegas now going on 17 years, man.
17 years. So, was this a move? So let's say I'm trying to do some math. So you were in Robstown, you graduated from Robstown, and then what were your steps like after graduation?
And it was crazy. Honestly, you try to meet up with a counselor, you try to do these things to kind of set you up, whether it's like going to school, going to college, finding your major, your whatever you're going to do. And actually got accepted over at Texas A&M Keysville, which I wanted to try out for the basketball team and that kind of stuff, and went over there. And, for whatever reason, man, school has never really been, and I'm not saying that school is bad, it just was never really, I guess the way the curriculum was set up and the routine and things wasn't really for me, It wasn't my learning skill, And from there, honestly, I was there for a year and a half, then I left, and I thought maybe a technical school, more hands-on, would be better for me. So I went to ITV Tech out in San Antonio. And I went out there and lived with some Robstown natives like Ralph Rodriguez, Robert Palacios, Matthew Verial, and Josh Padilla. We all roomed together there and went to school there for about a year and a half. And then I just came down and visited Robstown one time, bro, and I just actually applied over with the city, working with the electric department, the people that work on the power lines and stuff like that. And I was actually going to school for electrical engineering, so it was kind of something that intrigued me. And I got in, and I moved back to Robstown, and I kind of was just hanging out there, bro. Just kind of there working, and, in the area, you know what I'm saying? Everybody says that that's a good job to have, to work for the city. You can retire in 20 years, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I was there for about 4.5 years, and during that time frame, I actually started dating my wife. Her name is, her time was Jennifer Miller, and she's on Flower Bluff. She was going to school. Working at Applebee's and stuff like that, and when we started dating, she was the one that kind of was like, man, I have a big dream. I want to help people. I want to change the world. But I just feel like Corpus Christi is too small for me to do the impact that I want to do. There's not enough resources, that I can actually use to network to actually build some of my dreams. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, so what's the next move? She's like, well, my mom lives in Vegas. I'm thinking about finishing school out there. So I was like, all right, cool. We did a long-distance relationship, man, and kind of just stayed at that. Honestly, it sucked. And then I just relocated to Vegas. I said, screw it, man. I put my 2 weeks notice over at the electric department. And I moved out here. Just bought all my clothes. And I just said, the worst thing that could happen, it doesn't work out. I come right back to Robstown. And best thing that could happen is what's currently going on right now. And I moved out here, bro, and I've just been out here ever since. And I wasn't loading trucks. I really didn't have the right people around me, to be able to see the bigger picture of life and that type of stuff. And I just did a bunch of labor work here and there, paid pretty good out here in Vegas, and then got to a point about 5, almost 6 years ago where I connected with some very successful people. They were able to walk away from traditional jobs at a young age, and I kind of just started hanging out with them, started picking their brain, and started getting to build the mindset and give me their perspective, not just on life, but on success principles and how I can use success principles and leverage them in the industry that I'm in or whatever I'm currently doing to see the successes from that. It's funny how a lot of people know success principles, but they never really apply them. You know what I mean? To know something and not apply it, to know and not do is to not know. You know what I mean? You're missing the value on behind it. And I think as I started seeing what true men of success look like, you know what I mean? The way they treated their wife, the way they spoke to their kids, the relationship they have with their kids, whether it's having an abundance of money, an abundance of time, creating a better lifestyle for the one and only life we had, it kind of just, it flipped my world upside down. You know what I mean? Because I kind of, I mean, you saw it, bro. I mean, we used to live on Avenue D, right there on San Patricio. You know what I mean? And you're right there at the corner. And it was one of those things where, you know what I mean? Like, and my success was like, as long as I don't grow up the way I grew up, I'm successful. You know what I mean? As long as the electricity stays on all month, we got running water, you know what I mean? Like, there's food. I mean, roof over your head, food on the table. We're not being evicted. Cars not being repoed. That is successful to me at the time because that based on the way I was raised. I just didn't want my family to experience the things that I did. You know what I mean? And for me, it sucks, but it's a low standard. You know what I mean? But it's a better standard than what I had. You know what I mean? And when I started seeing other people be really successful, that became my new standard. You know what I mean? Like, if you judge your art based on the way I draw, you're gonna be like, man, you're amazing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But if you put yours up against some of the best, like Picasso and Da Vinci and all these other people, then it raises your standard of art. You know what I mean? So success, you know what I mean, will be based on your standard of what you compare it to. You know what I mean? We can look at homeless people right now and be like, hey, dude, I'm balling, I'm good compared to that person. But compare someone to a higher standard, so you have something to reach towards and grow into or be better. You know what I mean? And getting around certain people, man, is what changed my mindset and started changing my thought process. It changed my actions. It changed my words. You know what I mean? It just basically has changed my days. You know what I mean? And being able to help me just be able to move on in life, man, in general. So that's kind of been just the last, since graduating from Opson, you know what I mean? That's kind of been it. And it sounds like not much, but it seemed like it's so long too.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, there's so much to unpack on that. I feel like it's so important to talk about that, like successful networks, like your network of people, right? And a lot of people talk about your network is your net worth, can determine your net worth. And I feel like when you talk about success principles, it's so crazy how something that doesn't have a monetary value on it, it is what can get you any kind of monetary value that you seek, because it's like the underlying truths, right? Like these values, like so principles, to me it's like principles and values. Like, what do you value? And you were talking about family, you were talking about time, you were and then our standards, yeah, like you said, like it they were low. Our standard of living, like we just wanted to be to where we're surviving. And then I think back to, I don't know if you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where there's the pyramid of like needs that need to be met before you can even self-actualize and thrive. And you know, at the bottom it's like food and shelter, and then after that it's like social safety, things like that, before you can even get to a point where you can start to self-actualize and feel like you can thrive. But so I think it's really important what you were talking about, and it's underlying, and it seems so simple, but for a lot of people it's not easy, right? Like mentally it's not like there's a shift that has to happen within people's mindsets. Now, when you talk about your journey, how did you go about? So now you have this successful network. You're starting to socialize with people that are moving and shaking and making things happen. Now, did you like go back to school for some kind of planning or some kind of entrepreneurship, business management, or did you just start learning through experience within your circle and then just start getting into different ventures and different endeavors?
Yeah, man. And I think it's a great question. And I think for anybody that's listening in, I think that one of the biggest things is they got to find out what their standard of success is going to be and what they want their one and only life to look like. You know what I mean? And being able to put yourself, whether it's going to school, go to a trade school, or whatever the case for me, that wasn't my case. I felt like if I was going to go to school, and which I did for a little bit, and I accrued $60,000 of debt, I mean, to get a $28,000 paying job didn't really make sense to me from a financial standpoint. You know what I mean? I knew people that were getting higher paying jobs than me, you know what I mean, not even going to school. So for me, I just wanted to, you know, I was very aggressive, and I pursued people that were successful, and not like in a stalkerish way, but you know what I mean? I would just kind of, with the approach, like, hey man, I've seen the vehicle you drive, I've seen the way you dress, I've seen your watches, man. I think it's amazing. But obviously you're not working your typical 8 to 5. You mind, hey, what is it that you do? Like, or what's your mindset on being able to live a better life? You know what I mean? Because it looks like you're beyond the average way of living. And for me, I just pursued those relationships and the mindset. You know what I mean? And I put myself in, you know, it's funny that I run a $26 million property as a general manager. I mean, running the whole property there, but I had the entry-level position of just being a concierge person saying hi and bye to people. You know what I mean? But, you know, you're going to need to work at it. You know, and I heard you say that before. But at the same time, you need to be applying. You could be, you know, I mean, trying to chop a tree with a butter knife. And no matter how hard you do it, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? So there needs to be some skill or some knowledge, you know what I mean, behind it and putting the two together. You know what I mean? Because the only time there's opportunity is when, you know what I mean, when there's preparedness and opportunity intersect, create an opportunity, right? Preparedness and timing. You know what I mean? They have to intersect for an opportunity to be in fruition for yourself. And for myself, like I said, I just became very, very, like, observant of who was successful or who I deemed success and some of the things that I maybe wanted in life. And I would just ask them questions. You know what I mean? Hey, man, what industry do you operate in? Do you have a business? Do you do real estate? You know what I mean? Do you do stocks? Do you do trades? You know what I mean? Because everybody has just more than one way to skin a cat. You know what I'm saying? I just know that out here in Vegas, dude, I see Lambos, Ferraris, I see Bentleys, I see Teslas, I see new Corvette C8s, I see Shelby F-150 Raptors, and I'm like, that food does not work down the street for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's doing something different. You know what I mean? So for me, well, one of the things that I really, really hold true to my heart is, I think people got to find out what their success standard is. That's one. But two, what do you value? You know what I mean? And, you know, and this is not to knock anybody on anything, but I value my wife, I value my kids, I value family, and I value the time with them, and I value creating memories and experiences with the people that I love the most, friends, families, whatever the case may be. I mean, I don't value a car, I don't value a house, I don't value a watch, I don't value my suit, I don't value these type of things. Some people might, and it's perfectly fine. But whenever you find your values, you need to find like your top 5, top 10 values and be able to have applications towards something that'll help you live out those values, because the values is what's going to make you happy. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the money, it's not necessarily the title. You know what I mean? I thought as I moved up the corporate ladder at where I work at, I was a concierge guy. And now I run the whole thing. And it wasn't because I went to school for hospitality or property management. You know what I mean? I just started asking the main bosses and the investors, I'm like, hey, what are some things that you want to see changed here on the property? And then I started applying those things. They started noticing my actions behind it. And I slowly started getting promoted to where in the short 8 years, I run the whole thing. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, some of us are 1 to 2 questions away daily to change where we're going to be in the next 4 to 5 years. You know what I mean? And one of my friends always told me, he's like, hey, man, you're some of your 5 closest best friends. I mean, you hang out with 5 people that make 40 grand a year, you'll be the 6th. You hang out with 4 people that smoke weed, you'll be the 6th. You hang out with 5 people that watch porn, you'll be the 6th. You know what I mean? You hang out with 5 single dudes, I don't care if you're married or in a relationship, you'll be the 6th. He goes, but it's almost impossible for you to hang out with 5 millionaires and you not be the 6th. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you start walking different, talking different, you dress different. You know what I mean? The mindset just shifts, and it's not going to happen overnight. You can't change the destination overnight, but you can change the direction. You know what I mean? And that's where people miss, like, books like by Darren Hardy, like The Compound Effect, or by James Clear of Atomic Habits. Like, little compounded things day to day, day to day. You know what I mean? All you're looking to do is get 1% better every single day. Better than the person you were yesterday, not comparing to anybody else. You know what I mean? You might want to have a compass of where you want to be, but just get 1% better. And by default, you're 365% better every single year that goes by. You know what I mean? And just imagine where you would be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? But for me, I really, really value the relationships and the mindset of people. And you want to be successful, it's with and through other people. People think it's a title. People think it's a job. People think it's a degree. People think it's a car. But you got to learn to value people, like you said. There's relationships. You know what I mean? Relationships is the most important thing. And there's a guy that writes a lot of books. I don't know if you heard John C. Maxwell. He used to be a pastor. And I mean, you go over to the Barnes & Nobles, he got like 5 to 8 in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, of leadership books and relationship books. But he talks about how, hey, man, if everything you do and accomplish is with or through other people, then communication is the most important skill and rapport to develop that with other people. You know what I mean? And that's, I mean, you look at any successful business. Why is H-E-B successful? Because people shop there. You know what I mean? Why is Starbucks successful? Because people shop there. It has nothing to do with the coffee. You know what I mean? They create a good, they have a decent product, good customer experience, but the people make it successful. Us as the society and us as just people in general, we deem who is successful or not because we spend our money. We vote success in where we choose to spend our money, and that's how we make them successful. You know what I mean? If everybody stopped shopping at H-E-B and started going to Walmart, H-E-B would close down. So we vote success in the money that we have by putting our money where our mouth is or voting for a product. You know what I mean? We go buy a pizza at Pizza Hut instead of Little Caesars or whatever. We go to their success and Little Caesars failure by default. You know what I mean? So being able to know a little bit about money, a little bit about time, but most importantly, you get those things from other people, those mindsets. You know what I mean? And you want a tour guide, not a trip advisor. You know what I'm saying? You want someone that's walked down the path and has been there and gotten a t-shirt, and not the person that's heard of, or yeah, I could send you there and this is what you're going to be looking for. You know what I mean? Because that's a bunch of theory. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of where, when I would go to school, I would look at my professor and I'm like, this dude is talking about all this stuff. And you ask, like, hey, well, out of all the businesses you've just been talking about for this book, how many have you had? Well, I haven't had any. It's like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? And not to be disrespectful, but I almost feel like they're talking out of their butt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, well, if you haven't done it, you can't teach me. You know what I mean? So being able to keep things very logical and simple, I think for me has just helped me understand, like, hey, I need to get around the right people and just slowly develop that mindset, man. And being able to look at what they say and how am I going to apply it to what I'm doing daily, you know what I mean? Or where am I going to find time to do it daily? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that are busy, doesn't really mean that they're productive. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people going to quinceañeras, birthday parties, weddings. Man, I was so busy this weekend, but so what did you do that helped you move forward? Or what did you do to help your family move forward? What were you productive? And you really weren't. And not because things are bad things, but you're going to have to put some things on the back burner if you really want to get out of the hole that you're in, right? Or the lifestyle that you currently have. And there's a lot of things that need to change, but you just need to start with one day at a time. And I think that really, really comes with getting around the right people, man. If you don't get around the right people, I mean, it's just, it's like going to the gym and then leaving the gym and having a solid, great workout to come home and eat some crappy pizzas and cookies and Oreos and not wondering why you're not seeing results in your physique and why you don't feel better. You know what I mean? Even though you have good intentions, if you're not around other people that have turned those intentions into fruition or reality, then it's just an intention. There's a lot of people that have good intentions. I see it all over Facebook. You know what I mean? But those intentions will never come into fruition if they don't have time and then if they don't have money, right? So they got to be able to become successful in those two areas of life to be able to pour back into the world. You know what I mean? To help them out or do the things you want to feed people or build homeless shelters or build community centers or whatever. You know what I mean? You got to be able to have some type of time and money to be able to redirect it to make an impact, I guess, in your neighborhood or in your community, right? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And the thing is, for one, I liked how you were talking about your approach to making things happen. Like, there's this book by Alex Banayan, I think it is. It's called The Third Door. And he talks about people's avenues to success. Like, the first door is like the A, B, C, D usual avenues to success. Another door number 2 is the people that you know or something like that. Already established relationships, friendships, family, whatever, that get you into certain things. Door number 3 is the any means necessary. I'm gonna just link up with people. I'm like that. Like, I'm gonna ask questions. I'm gonna learn through experiencing and just go for it. And that's a book that really came to mind. And then Atomic Habits. That's a great book. It reminds me of that, how serious people take their success, whatever it is. So, like, it really boils down to a lot of little things, right? Because, I mean, I've heard people talk about, like, oh, well, I have this job and I got to go to work and I got the kids and I got this. I go, look, I've had 12-hour plus factory jobs to where I did that and then still had to come home and I would ride the bus or ride the bike in the middle of the winter in Minnesota and still hustle and still get home and work when I could. If I had to work at 7 a.m., I'm getting up at 5 a.m. so I at least get an hour and a half, 2 hours of building up my own career, doing applications, filling out things, creating some work. And then after, and every break at work and on lunch breaks, I'm looking up, business things to do, or like problem solving. I'm working on my goals in every nook and cranny of time, to where I phase out of the life that I don't want, because I'm working triple time on the life that I do want. And what the goal is, right, eventually, is to where, especially with what do you value, right? So you value more time. Of course, now you want to get to a point where wanted to get to a point where I was working smarter, not harder. Wasn't exchanging time and physical labor for money. I wanted to do it to where I'm exchanging value for money. So I'm getting paid for my value, not for my time, right? And then also, you want to have multiple streams of income. You want to have passive. Of course, you want to have passive income. You want to have stuff that compounds. You want to have your money working while you're sleeping, right? So these are things to take into account. I feel like it's important for people to hear that, like what you were saying. Now, when you talk about relationships, you talk about networks, you talk about the habits and stuff, like what we were just mentioning, right? It's a bunch of like great information too that we're unloading, but it's the application of this information. So people can have all the information in the world. It's the application. Like, why do you think, right? Cliches are so. Their cliches are cliches, but it's like, okay, anything you put your mind to, you can do, or something like that. But it's not until you take these words as like gospel, like this is literal. You can apply this. This is a formula. This is a cheat code. This is literally apply it, instead of just like read the book and take it in. No. Actually put it to work. Now, what are ways that you do that on a day-to-day basis? Do you have like a routine, a daily routine that you do? I mean, do you have your like, how do you go about your day to make sure every day you're living based on your values and principles?
Yeah, no, 100%, bro. And I just wanted to touch base a little bit too, because going back to what you were talking about here a little second ago, it's kind of, there's people that are in pursuit of a dream job, and there's other people that are in pursuit of a dream life. You know what I mean? And it's two different things. And what you do from 8 to 5 gets you by, but what you do from 6 to midnight will build your future. You know what I mean? The 6 to midnight will one day replace that 8 to 5. So now you live full time and you work part time, instead of working full time and only living part time and just on the weekends, or whatever the case may be, right? And but I think you're spot on with that. And I think you got to be able to, what you do daily is who you become permanent, right? And for me personally, you know what I mean, the first thing I do when I wake up and my alarm goes off, you know what I mean, and I don't know what people's schedule's like, and everybody's different. You know what I mean? But successful, unsuccessful, average, rich, broke, don't matter. Everybody has 24 hours a day. I think the real key ingredient is that how do you utilize your time? Like you said, you were finding every second that you could to look up success principles, do this, do that, and because you value time. Anybody can invest money to make some money, but you got to learn to invest time to create more time. People value their time. You know what I mean? When you can learn how to make time with your time, then the money just falls into place, right? So for me particularly, if you have an hourly wage job, or let's say you work at 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, then you should be waking up earlier to do certain things. For me, I get paid salary, so it depends. My schedule kind of shifts here and there, but I got in a habit where every single morning, the first thing I do when I wake up is I read for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I find a book that will help me in one way, shape, or form. To be a successful business owner, entrepreneur, there's a lot of skill sets that you have to have. You know what I mean? So I read books, leadership books, communication books, mindset books, finance books, you know what I mean? Like just books that will help me move forward in life. And the first thing I do is my alarm goes off, I turn it off, I sit up, reach over to my nightstand, and I'm reading the book, The 8 Attributes of Great Leaders. You know what I mean? And I read for 20 minutes every single day. That's the first thing I do. I need some positive input going in my system, because there's none of negative BS the moment I walk outside my door. You know what I mean? My Latino side comes out when I don't have any positive input in my system. You know what I mean? So I need to be able to have some type of positive input, because what goes in is what comes out. You know what I mean? So for me, I read for 20 minutes, and then I'll get up, then I'll go pee, wash my face, and brush my teeth, and then I'll listen to a positive audio. It could be a motivational video, it could be a podcast, it could be something. As either I go for a jog or I make breakfast, and I need these positive inputs in my life, so it gives me the right perspective that when I walk out the door, that I know my purpose the moment I left. You know what I'm saying? I'm not letting life attack me, I'm attacking life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna go over here and get blindsided so I can end up on a cart and get like carted off the field. Like, I'm going out there with my gear, and my gear is my input. You know what I mean? And it gives me the right perspective, so when I get in my car and I'm driving down, somebody can cut me off, it doesn't faze me, it doesn't do whatever, because my purpose and my mindset has already been tweaked. You know what I mean? And it sucks, but a lot of people, you got to be at work at 8, they wake up at 7. You know what I mean? And they give their best to another business owner, a job, whatever you want to call it. They give their best to that. So then they think they can read or do something afterwards, but they've given their best. And just like a cell phone, when you took it up the charging point, it's at 100%. Now it's at 50. When you're at 50, you're like, man, I just want to go home and I just want to chill. I'm going to Netflix it up, blah, blah, blah. And you're giving your best, and you're like, I'll just do whatever tomorrow. And it's the same thing over and over and over. Like, if you got dreams and goals, and I wouldn't even say goals. You know what I mean? Goals is such a BS word to me that there should be commitments. You know what I mean? There should be something in your brain and your vision that's like, bro, this is non-negotiable. It's not a thing. This is going down. You know what I mean? I'm going to become a millionaire. Or I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, you make a commitment to yourself, and you have the action to back it up to live out that commitment. I mean, there's a lot of people that have goals and never hit them because they just kind of like, oh, it's in contention. Like, oh, like I meant to be nice, but I came off as a douchebag. Like, no, man. Like, if you're committed to be nice, then you know what you're saying and how you're saying it, right? And I think a lot of times we get lost in our day-to-day routines, and we kind of just put things on the back burner, and we underestimate the value behind the things that we can do. You know what I mean? And the routines, I would write it out. You know what I mean? I have my calendar booked out, like literally a week to 2 weeks in advance, and I put when I'm working. And around it, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm waking up at this time so I can invest into myself and my future. And then I'm going to go make some money for my family. But at least I'm investing into myself first, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I know it was a little bit all over the place, but...
No.
That's just the approach of the day, man.
No, it does. It makes sense 100%. I feel like that was my thing, too. Before I used to get to the factory, I would start my day with my stuff right and then do my workouts and then chip away at my work. And then I'd get there... Like you were saying, like, okay, now I'm ready to be present there 100%. I'll work. You can have some of my time for now because I already gave time to myself before I even got here, right? So, and reading, I mean, reading is so. I mean, the benefits of reading is are so immeasurable because, I mean, I'm hearing the people, the authors that you mentioned, and I dive straight into self-improvement and stuff because I had nobody to like coach me along the way or mentor me or anything. So my mentors and my peers now became the people in the books, the people in the audiobooks. So when it started with like Tony Robbins, but then like Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, Simon Sinek, Tim Ferriss, like I those were my circle. That was my circle because I didn't have a circle immediately around me that had that mindset, right? So I feel like another thing that you mentioned was canceling out goals, not goals, but commitments, right? Turning your shoulds to musts. Like this is not, it's not even the second guessing because then also what you do with that is like, then you can, and this is also goes back into working first and then trying to work on your stuff after your job. You make all these decisions throughout the day. You have to choose whether or not you're going to commit to this thing. You have to. So then you end up with decision fatigue, right? Or analysis paralysis. It's like, oh, but if it's non-negotiable, and there's this really great book called Essentialism, and by Greg something, but he had this really good thing. He said, if it's not a 9 or 10, it's a no. If it's not a 9 or 10, it's a no. So make it a 9 or a 10. If that's what you want to do, it's a 9 or 10. Go. That's it. Don't second guess it. That's it. Go full throttle. Now, so what do you do? What do you do at work? What are some of your some of your roles at work at Container Park? What are some of the stuff that you do over there?
Yeah, no, for sure, bro. And I just want to touch base on something you just said too, man. I read the book. It's called The One Thing by Keller Coxon or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it talks about that if you have more than 2 priorities, you actually have none. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like you said, people can't figure out what they're going to be doing every single day, analysis paralysis. But at the same time, all they got to do is, the moment they find their values, all they got to do is filter their decision making through their values. So it's like, oh, cool, man, I'm going to go out and drink at the bar. Okay, cool. Is this going to help me get me closer to my wife, to my kids? Is it going to help me get out of a job? Is it going to help me become a millionaire? No, it's not. Okay, cool, I'm not going to do that. It's not a bad thing, but I'm just going to put it on the back burner because I'm going to invest that time in a different way, right? And the book, The One Thing, kind of shine light on that. It's like you could be a jack of all trades and master of none, or what's the one thing that you can do that'll set up the rest of your life? You know what I mean? And for everybody, that's different. But that's why they got to figure out their values, right? So I just wanted to kind of say that because you're right, man. A lot of people just, they don't know the difference between a priority and an urgency. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that need urgent attention, but what are priorities? My future is a priority. My family is a priority. My family's a priority more than hanging out at the barbecue to watch the Dallas Cowboys lose again, even though it's my favorite team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's priorities and there's urgencies, you know what I mean? And people got to be able to decipher the difference between the two. And if they struggle with that, then they're going to be in the exact same spot, not wondering. They're basically just running in circles and are wondering why they haven't changed the scenery around them because they're in the same spot, right? So, but when it comes to Container Park, man, what do I do there? So, I do everything, right? So I oversee. We have a cleaning crew, right? The hygiene in the park, clean out the restrooms, trash cans, stuff like that. Do the scheduling for the porters, they clean and stuff like that. I also have a concierge team where people walk in, they're gonna say like, "Hey, how you doing? Welcome. Are you looking for everything okay? Do you find everything okay? What do you need?" And they'll point them in the right direction. I oversee our marketing, what goes on our TikTok, our social media, as far as Instagram and Facebook. I come up with events. You know what I mean? We have music every Friday and Saturday night. I got to filter through local talent to see who's going to be on that stage. We also have a security plan with the city of Las Vegas because we have a liquor license, we have food license with the health department, and making sure all those things are operating on a high level to our standard and their standard so that we can remain open, right? So, but I work with alcohol vendors, people from like Modelo, Corona, Pacifico, Bud Light, Budweiser, some of the smaller breweries that are local. I don't want to make it seem like I do a lot, but there's a lot of areas that are filled in there. You know what I mean? I also see our safety concerns there at the park so that we're not, what's the whole point of making all that money and then you get a lawsuit and you lose all that money, right? So we want to be able to make money and be productive within our businesses, but at the same time, not creating any incidents that might be, create liabilities there at the park, right? So the way businesses look at the employees is either they're a liability or they're an asset. You know what I mean? Whenever you're people that you have that person that's working, doing what they need to do, they're on their game, they're an asset to the company. So more than likely that person will get promoted or they'll get a raise because they add value to the company adds value to them. There's other employees that are just like, hey, I'm just going to buy my time, I'm just here, I'm just going to stand there, and that person's a liability because you're paying them, but they're not really doing what they need to do and can hurt the company in the long term, right? So indirectly, you know what I mean? So for me, those are some of the things that I look at. I observe the people coming in, I observe our teams. I try to do a lot of leadership and communication trainings, relationship trainings with them because you never know who's going to walk through the door. But overseeing a lot of those areas, man, the accounting, the payroll, scheduling, and building relationships with other investors, other alcohol companies to do events and stuff like that. Like, so an example, obviously in Robstown, Texas, I'm a Latino. So on the third Saturdays of every month, we have what we call Noche Latina. You know what I mean? So we have like a Plocórico dance from like 5 to 5:30. And then we have like Latin music from 6:30 to like 9:30. Then I also have like some local Latin vendors, like somebody selling pan dulce, somebody else selling panchos and baja sweaters. I got other people selling like gummies with chamoy and michelada powder on them and stuff like that. So Noche Latina, we're partnered with Cantera Negra Tequila and Estrella Jalisco Beer. You know what I mean? So we partner with them to get their product and push that at the bars, but then they also give us support money to be able to have the Plocórico and the music and stuff like that because it's not free, right? So building those relationships with people and they help us be successful, will help them push volume of their alcohol for them to be successful. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You know what I mean? And we kind of it's literally a seesaw. You know what I mean? And you're literally helping each other out, and that's the way every business and every partnership should be. You know what I mean? Like one's going up, and then when it's coming down, then the other one's going up, and we're just helping each other go back and forth with different events, different things. Because events bring people in, and people come in and spend money, and the businesses make money. They make money. They can pay rent, and they pay rent. I could pay our staff, and I could do maintenance, I could do events, I could do different things. Some of it might be a profit, but a lot of it we turn it back. We invest back in the property to continue to operate, to stay fresh, stay trendy, and we're always operating on different things. We throw in yoga, we throw in Ohana Day, we throw in country nights, we throw in a reggae day. I'm having a May the 4th. We're giving the movie The Force Awakens by Star Wars. I got 6 people dressed up as people from Star Wars, and they're going to do a fight scene on Cinco de Mayo. I got mariachis, I got a Latin band, we got taco specials, margarita specials. Like, we're always just working and investing it back into the property so that it can stay sustainable and operational. You know what I mean? To be able to create that revenue. That's the goal. Is always to push volume in a certain way, right? Be able to figure it out, to be able to push volume so all the businesses in there can be successful. If they're successful, then by default, I'll be successful. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the niche and crank of like everything I got going on there at the park.
So you have, okay, so you have an idea. You have an idea for an event. Okay, boom, this is coming up. Oh, Cinco de Mayo. Oh, May the 4th. Okay, now, partnerships. When you come up with a partnership, how do you go about, do you put a package together? Do you put a proposal together and then pitch it to these partners? Or is it already like a network that you already have built up and then you just call on these people like, hey, let's put this thing together, and then it's pretty much everybody that's already there? Or like, how do you have to establish new partnerships? Like, how do you go about like bringing something to life once you have the idea?
You know, it's kind of crazy, man, but like I have a business card, it has my name, my email, my phone number on it. So people will come in and be like, hey, man, how do I rent a spot in here? Or, hey, how do I have an event here or whatever? And a lot of times our concierge give him my card and be like, don't call him because he gets a bunch of phone calls. Just shoot him an email. He's best at email. And I have people email me and I'll reach back out. And I'll be like, hey, man, if you ever have time to come by the park, tomorrow or the next day we'll have a meeting. We'll sit down. And I kind of just ask them. And I'll be like, hey, man, so what are you looking to see? Like, if you want to have an event, what is that event looking like? And what is the outcome or the result of having that event? What does it do for you, beneficially for you? Or what are you looking to come out from that event? What's the result that you're looking to get? And because for me, I like events. I just don't want to run them. You know what I mean? I like brainstorming and putting our stuff together, but at the same time, I'll get all the details and all the chess pieces in place to make it happen. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, well, what are you looking to get out of it? And I guess if our motive isn't on the same wavelength, then we probably won't do it. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be a disagreement at one point or another, right? So I always just ask, hey, man, well, what are you looking at? Well, man, I'm really trying to get my alcohol in here. Or I'm really trying to get the awareness of my nonprofit out there or whatever. Like an example, my wife has been, we have our own information age business outside of work. So I actually make more money outside of work than I do at work. So we had her stop working. We got debt free. We put over 1.5 years saved up in the bank. So then she started doing a nonprofit where she has something called the Heroes League, where it's her nonprofit for women to stay active, and it's a basketball league for women that she has every Sunday. We get financial assistance, whether it's me getting money from our business so I can write it off for tax purposes, or we get state funding, and she does like camps for teenage girls for basketballs. We give out basketballs, we give out backpacks, we give out shoes. We do different things like that. But we just did something for Women's History Month in March, and we have what we call the fashion show. So I took all the women entrepreneur business owners in my property, and anybody that had like a boutique or whatever, we had 5 models model for that business. I mean, walking across stage. You know what I mean? My wife and another girl were actually the DJs. We had a girl DJ, and then we actually highlighted a tequila called La Gritona, which is an all-women tequila distillery out of Mexico. You know what I mean? Highlighting Women History Month. So we made it all about the women. I was just behind the scenes kind of just shifting stuff around. You know what I mean? But it's a nonprofit. And like my wife, obviously my wife, so I had time to talk to her. I'm like, hey, so what's the purpose behind this fashion show? She's like, I'm just trying to bring awareness to the small businesses and the women business owners and the boss ladies, per se, that are moving and shaking in the Vegas Valley. And I just want to really highlight them. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do it. You know what I mean? And boom, we had a fashion show, we had a DJ, and it was a great turnout. There's like 300-400 people there. But for me, it's like, I don't really have like a package. You know what I mean? Because it's good to have a packet maybe prepared for you, but I wouldn't necessarily pull it out. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's motives are going to be different. So I think the approach needs to be more of a question-based thing, like almost like an interview process. Like, hey, man, so what are you looking to get out of it? Oh, cool, that's what you want. This is where I can help, and kind of go back and forth. And I don't want to say just wing it, but I don't want it to get robotic. Where like, this is the packet, take a look at it, let me know what you think, and if it works, cool. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I try to keep it very, like you said, very organic. right? And keep it very authentic and genuine. And it's like, all right, cool. So we're looking to go from that. And I'm going to go, that meeting's going to go based off the feedback he gives me. You know what I'm saying? So maybe other people that we're kind of helping from a financial standpoint, you know what I mean, where we kind of build some leadership skills for them, but we mentor them in such a way to help them be, I guess, build a cash flow asset or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? I can only coach off of the body language and the words they give me. I'm not force feeding anybody, kind of like what we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go and have someone and overload them with too much knowledge, and then they're going to get constipated. You know what I mean? Like, I'm answering based on the questions that they're asking me, because when they ask that question, that means they're ready for that answer. You know what I mean? Where other people, you give them the answer, they're not ready for it, they get offended by it, and then they just shy away, even though your intention was good. You know what I mean? So every meeting, when it comes to events, nonprofit, or whatever, I'm going off of the words they're giving me based on the questions I ask them. You know what I mean? He who asks the most questions leads the conversation or leads the meeting, right? So being able to just go off of the questions I'm asking them and the feedback they give, you know what I mean? Being able to guide that meeting and the direction needs to be based on the answers they give or the feedback they give, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's really, really great. And like, you have a really good point, because it doesn't end up too formulaic, and that feeling of being organic. It's open to creativity, right, and creative approaches and new approaches, things that aren't on the paper or on a proposal. That's where the beauty, I feel like, a lot of magic happens in those in between moments, in that space. Now,
it keeps it exclusive. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
exclusive for that one person, because like, because I do a bunch of events, but you never hear anybody say, "Oh, it's just like this event," or "It's just like." Nobody's ever going to say that, because I'm always going to put our own twist on it. So because we're going off of what that person is saying, we make it exclusive, and it's like, man, that's kind of a one. That's like a one-off. Like, that's like not like anything else. So it keeps it exclusive. You know what I mean? And I think that's the way it should be with any conversation or relationship that you have with people, right? I mean, I have a lot of relationship with girls, but I have an exclusive one with my wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different. It's not just like the other girl. Like, hell no. Like, you got to be able to be based on the values that we have between each other and the questions we ask and our words. It's exclusive for her. I'm exclusive for her. She's exclusive for me. But, you know what I mean? And that's the value of, like you said, not making it too robotic or too factory. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it's the same thing over and over. And it gets it loses the humanism in it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I love about moving back at home in Robstown, bro, is that, I mean, even though there was the ups and downs in Robstown, and in the 90s there was this and there was that, yeah, man, it is what it is. But there was a lot of humanity there, bro. There was a lot of humanism. There was a lot of, like, carissimo. You know what I mean? Like, there was a raza in that, even though from the outside looking in, people are looking like, oh, man, that's a bad place or whatever. But there was a lot of humanism. And I love, like, even when I go on Facebook, and I try not to be on social media too much, but I love seeing all the people from Robstown, man, sometimes posting things, or their businesses, or they're moving on, or their kids. And it's like, dude, I live out here in Vegas. I don't even know my neighbor. Because out here it's operating 24 hours a day. Like, some people work 8 to 5, some people work 5 to 1, some people work midnight to 8. And it's so hot out here, nobody's outside playing flag football or tag or hide and go seek or street football. Hell no, you trip on the street out here when it's 150 degrees, you got 33 burns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no humanism in the neighborhood where, like, dude, back at home, I could name every neighbor all the way down the block and turn the corner and name all those people too, because the humanity, you know what I mean? Like, the humanism is there, and that's one of the things I love about the small town living, bro. Is the small town living, there's nothing like knowing people, talking, and I mean, obviously you have people gossip and do whatever, but being able to just know people, man, and talk and having those interactions, there's nothing like it, man. And coming to a bigger city, sometimes you lose that, but that's why it's very important, going back to what we were talking about, is establishing the right relationships, that you still have those interactions in your industry or in your, whatever your niche is, to still grow and have something within that environment. You know what I mean? People, or whatever the case may be.
Hey, I love that. And like, one of the things that I get reminded of when I get back home, also is like how my dad, especially when I go on cruises with my dad, he's just like waving at everybody, and everybody's always waving at each other, and then people passing by and waving, and it's like, hey, Dad, who's that? Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes it's just like people waving. We're just waving at each other. But now, speaking of that, speaking of the humanism, speaking of that, bringing it down. Uh, so you do all these things, and you have all this drive, and you got all this going on, right? Now, how do you find your, I don't know about balance. Some people feel kind of iffy about balance because it ebbs and flows. But where is your peace? Like, how do you celebrate after a long stretch, or after whether it be after a day or after a week of doing something? Where is your peace, your balance? Like, when you get, is it when you get home, or daily, or is it like every so often you choose to like wind down, like find a nice chill time? Where's your peace, like your center?
Yeah, and and kind of going back to it, but I find my center and my values around my values. You know what I mean? Which is family time and doing all these things. And it's like, hey, I'm doing this because the result in is going to give me this. You know what I mean? And you got to, everybody's different. I think the most important relationship you got to establish, you got one with yourself. You know what I mean? It's funny how we want to get to know everybody else, but we don't know ourselves. We're so worried about making everybody else happy that we're never happy. You know what I mean? We're always giving people advice that we never take our own. You know what I'm saying? So I think I found peace where 5-6 years ago when I was, like, I met successful people and I kept them on my back pocket, like, to have them close to me. It's helped me establish where I don't, and not that I'm falling out of control, but I'm not worried about money. Like, we're not in debt. Everything that we have, we own. Like, I'm not worried about, that's everybody's number one problem is the finance. Everybody's always like, well, how am I going to pay this? Or how am I going to pay that? Like, we're 100% debt free. And then we live within our means, and we're able to save up over a year, save up in the bank. So if some BS happens, we'd be 100% straight. You know what I mean? So I think people get burned out more, not just because of what they're doing. They get burned out because of the things that they're doing doesn't come back and reflect a direct result in their marriage, in their relationship with their kids, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So for me, you got to understand the industry that you operate in. There's going to be peak seasons, and there's going to be like leveled out seasons, and there's going to be some pretty crappy seasons, right? For me, as a general manager, I run an outdoor venue. In Las Vegas, it'll be 118 degrees in June, July, and August. So right now is like the most beautiful time right now to have events. So right now, I consider this is me striking when the iron's hot. And I'm, quote unquote, overworked at the moment. But I don't get burned out because my capacity, my bandwidth, because of reading books and doing all these things, I know what I can take and what I can't. Right? But at the same time, I know that when June comes around, I'm on cruise control, and I'm going to be able to do more things with my family, more things for my business, and do things outside of work, because there's not a lot of things I can do whenever it's 118 degrees and I run a property made out of metal containers. You know what I'm saying? So people got to be able to understand. It's like when people work in the oil field. There's some people that, hey, they have turnarounds, and they got it 3 straight months, and then they're off for 2 months. You know what I mean? So you got to know when to pick and choose. And my safe place is being with my family. Dude, you want the way to people's heart? It's through the stomach, man. Eat some food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some good Mexican food, some good sushi. You know what I mean? Some good Korean barbecue or whatever. Like, for me, I just love food. In Vegas, it's a melting pot of 55 whiskeys. So there's so many authentic food out here that I just love food. I do yoga sometimes with my wife. You know what I mean? The other thing is, I think it's very, very strong. And it doesn't matter what you believe, but have some type of spiritual faith. You know what I mean? Us as men, especially, we think that we can control everything. You know what I mean? We do our best to try to control everything, and it's impossible. And that's why we get frustrated. The only reason we become frustrated is because you want someone else to do something that you want them to do, but they're not doing it. You know what I mean? And that's why being a leader, being an example, and influence them is the best way to do it instead of just telling them, right? And I think for us as men, like, you know what I mean? We got to be able to lean back on a spiritual faith, whether it's being Catholic, whether it's being Christian, whether it's Buddhism, whatever, Scientology, whatever. You got to be able to understand that, hey, there's certain things you can't control in life that are outside of your control, and you just got to understand that you're in the passenger side, and whoever it is you believe in is in the driver's side, but you trust that he's not going to crash you and drive you off of the cliff. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us have a weak spiritual faith. You know, I know I did too, and I don't blame this on anybody, but, you know, it kind of sucks to say this, but I feel like one time we go to St. Anthony's Church, it's whenever we needed something. You know what I mean? Like, my mom was like, hey, this weekend we're going to church. You know what I mean? We're going to hope that the parole lady is nice to her dad or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, but then when things were like okay or good, we never went. You know, there was a lot of inconsistency, so I never really had a foundation of a spiritual faith there. You know what I mean? So when I met my wife, she had a little bit of a stronger one and more of a solid foundation that it helped me understand that when I was like getting frustrated or getting like anxiety or depressed, I'm like, it's just because I didn't have someone to lean on. I didn't have a faith to lean on. And I think everybody needs to find that. You know what I mean? Because it could be very therapeutic for them. You know what I mean? And at the same time, talking to other people that have a strong, I think spiritual faith will actually help out a lot. Because, I mean, if you feel that life is attacking you and you talk to someone that validates it, you're just getting deeper in the water, man. You know what I mean? But if you're getting around people that they're like, hey, man, you know, that's just one chapter, bro. Like, it came to an end. This is a new one. Then they're taking you out of the water so you're not drowning in it. You know what I mean? And I think that spiritual faith is huge, man. A lot of successful people, a lot of successful athletes, a lot of successful actors. Sometimes the only person they say that they all think my heavenly Father. You know what I mean? And it's not they're not doing it for show. It's a lot of those people that are successful. They're successful because they have a strong spiritual faith. You know what I mean? They understand that, hey, my work, my purpose is not going unseen. You know what I mean? That, hey, I'm doing it. There's a purpose behind it, right? And there's someone that's guiding me, and I might be in a room full of darkness, but there's a light that I'm trying to go towards. And they truly in their heart do not believe that or haven't believed, it's going to be tough, man. I mean, you're gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think finding that spiritual faith is very, very important.
And I feel like you get to surrender like a lot of that control, you know. It's like instead of you feeling like you're telling life what to do or what to be, it's more of a conversation with life. It's a back and forth, right? And you're open to that, and you surrender that power, that control, and I feel like that's very very liberating. And I think another thing that stood out to me while you were talking is about like that, like everything that you're doing is aligned with your values, and it reminds me of how they tell me. You know, a lot of people would tell me too. Like a lot of my family too also knows that I work like I'm always doing something, even when I'm just here chilling. Like it's so hard for me to like watch a movie or like something and just sit there. Like it's really, but it's not like that. I'm just like crazy about work. It's just like. It goes back to this quote where they say, if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. Like it's work, but it's not work. It's like I can't. I know you know what I mean. Like it's work, but it's living. Like literally, it's just living. It's just my life. I just love doing it.
I think it's like it comes from a point where, you know what I mean. So many people get caught up making a living, they forget to live a life. And I feel like the things that you're doing, you feel like you're living life through those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're using them, you know what I mean? They're using them as tools in order to add value. And I think for you, based on what you know and the value that you know that you're adding, you operate not because it's an obligation, but you're operating because of responsibility that you know that if it's changed you in such a way, that it can change other people in the same way. So you operate on responsibility, not on obligation. You know what I mean? And that's where, like, people that work these 9 to 5s or get these corporate jobs, like, no, bro, you're obligated to do that. You know what I mean? One of the reasons I took the job that I took right now is because when I'm there, bro, like, okay, at MGM or Resorts World, which are bigger casinos that are on the strip, I can clear 6 figures so easily, it's not even funny. But it's very corporate and purposeless. So for me, I would get burned out doing the same crap over, renting out these venues and doing these events that are unmeaningful. Where for me, I took the responsibility of operating all small businesses. You know, because it reminded me of Robstown. It reminded me of MGs. It reminded me of Barrera. It reminded me of Golden Chip. You know what I'm saying? It reminded me of Cabrera Bakery. I mean, there ain't no other one. There ain't no secondary locations to any of those places. So when I worked at Container Park, it's a property comprised of local and small businesses. We looked ourselves as a small business incubator to help entrepreneurs get their feet wet and figure out entrepreneurialism so they could build a bigger and successful business, right? So I took the responsibility, even though I got paid less, it was more purposeful for me to do events and stuff at that property to benefit those small businesses than it would be to go work at Caesar's Palace or to go work at Planet Hollywood or whatever the case may be, right? And once again, I like to help out the small people because Robstown is a small people, you know what I mean, compared to San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, or whatever the case may be, right? Even like a Vegas. So for me, I found purpose in some of the things that I was doing, so it allows me to operate in responsibility and not obligation. You know what I mean? I'm not just trading life in order to make money. I mean, I'm creating life while I'm making money. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, it helped me find a good mindset balance, but it's based on my values. And that's why people, it all is going to stem back to, hey man, what are you rooted in? What are your values? And what can you do daily that adds to those values and creates more value for those values, and it makes you happy? Because I mean, people don't understand the difference between a hobby and their value. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I like to go drink or I like to go shoot pool, but does it really make you happy? You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, maybe make you happy in that one moment, but when you leave, you're not happy. So it's not truly a value, it's more like a hobby, right? So people got to figure out these true values and doing things. Like, I mean, it's almost like Tina, man, like Tina, right? She finds value in making people laugh, and she's always found value in that. You know what I mean? This chick would be saying all kinds of craziness when we were in middle school, and she was always laughing, she was always smiling, and look at her. Look at her today. I mean, it sucks. I was able to meet up with her, but she came to Vegas, and she had a couple of things out here. I had a bunch of business meetings and all sorts of stuff, but I was able to, but she finds value and happiness in making other people laugh. And she just ran with it, and look at her now. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people just got to find what makes them happy and what are their values, and find an industry that operates that in, or create a business model around that can create, I mean, the money will come on its own because you're happy. You know what I'm saying? Like Tony Robbins and all these guys, all these motivational speakers, and I mean, they all like feel like they're adding value and makes them happy when they're pouring into other people, and the money thing kind of just takes care of itself. You know what I mean? So I think just getting that true happiness, man, is why are you here? You know what I mean? What's your purpose? You know what I mean? You're not here by accident. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason that you're here, and you just that's your lifelong goal, is to find out why. You know what I'm saying? So.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. And that's it's like reminds me of the Simon Sinek book, is the Start with Why. Now, so then the last thing I have is it's a 2-part, maybe like 3-part thing. It's a multi-lit. So it's like, okay, what's next for you? What's next for you? And then if you want to close it off with any advice that you would give to whether or not it's somebody in back in Robstown that's thinking about expanding outward and doing something outside of the box, or a budding entrepreneur, or somebody who wants to just like make something of themselves and kind of on that fence, right? They're on the cusp of what's next, and they're you know, just looking for any kind of signpost forward. So what's next for you, and any advice that you would give to anybody like on the cusp of wanting to change or find their purpose?
Yep, no, 100%, bro. Like, I mean, I think when it comes to people wanting to change and do whatever, I think sometimes, like we talked about earlier, like reading books. I think reading books is the game changer. You know what I mean? It's wisdom and experiences and knowledge that were put into books, whether they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, but it lives on forever because those books are constantly being read. It's almost like reading somebody's mind. I mean, if you can open up somebody's brain and read it, that's what a book is. That's why these authors, they do those type of things, right? But a lot of times that people like myself, we were forced to read certain books in school that I really didn't like. So I would always tell myself, I don't like reading. You know what I mean? I hate reading. I don't like reading, but I didn't want to read Mice and Men. I didn't want to read of Shakespeare. But when I read books now, I read books like Wired That Way, Switch On Your Brain. You know what I mean? I read the book by Miss Dr. Carol, Mindset, and it helps you. You can actually reprogram the way you think. You know what I mean? Because it comes back to, hey man, does your mind control your brain, or does your brain control your mind? You know what I mean? Because people will say certain things like, oh, I'm like that because my mom was like that. I was like that because my dad was like that. But it's not necessarily true. You know what I mean? You can change it. You know what I mean? But a lot of times we underestimate our own power of how we think. You know what I mean? And I think being able to read books like that to help you understand that, then you'll start to see the value in the books that you're reading, whether it's John C. Maxwell books or leadership books or self-purpose books, right? And I think those books there were foundational for me to be able to take in other books and the context behind it and actually learning the value from it to be able to apply it. You said something earlier where people are like, yeah, they know, but if they're not applying it, it doesn't matter. I mean, people are like, well, that's not true or whatever. It's 100% true. Dude, if a librarian has read almost every book in the freaking library, why aren't they multi-millionaires? They know everything. They just don't apply it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
you should be a multi-millionaire, and they know everything. Even the people that are Barnes and Noble, I read that book, I read that book. It's like, but you're getting paid $13 an hour to work here. Like, but they just missed the value whenever they read. I would encourage you to go back and go reread it. You know what I'm saying? So being able to know the value behind the things you're reading, where you can apply it, and just be able to read those things and how they operate in the industry or an industry that you want to operate in. And I think change is huge, and you got to find out, like, hey, like for me, I wanted to leverage an online platform and stuff like that, so I don't got to be at a brick and mortar store every single day. You know what I mean? So that I didn't want to have employees because I felt like sometimes they're headaches. As a general manager, I'm a / glorified babysitter. Because if people call out, I got to figure this out. I got to figure that out. I got to figure out what's going to keep the business going, even though people might not be as accountable as they say they are. Right? So for me, I just want to. I see myself being able to walk away from a traditional job in the next 2 or 3 years. At the age of 40, I want to be able to move back to San Antonio and live on the north side of San Antonio and buy a house there and operate my business from there with my wife and my kids. I want to be able to build a sports complex just outside of Robstown, going towards Calallen, but more so in Robstown. I want to be at a financial standpoint where I am not charging these kids to go there. They're way in there to do basketball skills, football skills, baseball skills. Is going to be their report card. If they're putting it in the classroom, then they can come in and work out. If they're not, then we'll have a tutoring session, get that grade up, so they can go do that. And you know, I'm a little bit biased. I might be only for the Robstown people, the Kalani, so less people, they might have to pay, which is not really my concern, but I'll think about it whenever I get there, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that's something that we wanted to do. We wanted to do like a dance academy, a soccer thing. And I feel there's so much talent potentially in that South Texas area. There's just not enough exposure for them. You know what I mean? So we can bring the right resources for these kids and the right mindset to prepare going on to college and the mindset of whatever particular sport they might be playing. I think we can add value to them and have the Robstown area flourish. You know what I mean? That's just me personally. I see things like Ramiro Lopez and the stuff he does with his, I think his skills, South Texas with the girls doing basketball stuff. Dude, I want to be able to have a gym and they're going to use that. You know what I mean? I see Robert Villa, bro, took the old Boys and Girls Club and turned it into like a boxing league. Like, I want to be able to sponsor some boxers for him so that they're not worried about, like, hey, how are we going to do whatever? Like, those type of things, like, really, really move my heart. You know what I mean? Those are the things that, too, that keep me operating daily because it's bigger than me. A lot of people are doing things based on their comfort zone or their comfort level. And for me, I don't have one because like, it's not based on me. I'm trying to help other people that don't even know I exist. You know what I mean? Like, I wear roll down my chest, bro, like crazy, just like the way you do. You know what I mean? And I always tell people, I was like, man, I'll bleed red. And they're like, well, down bad. Like, no, but it's because we're from. You know what I mean? And for me, it's big. And I want to be able to just walk over to this job. I want to travel, create memories and experience. I want to retire my parents. I want to buy them a house. You know what I mean? I want to be able to get them vehicles paid for cash and some of that, so I'm not worried about having to pay it. You know what I mean? And I want to be able to create change in that South Texas area. You know what I mean? I feel like some people get kind of content and they underestimate, like, we're born for greatness, but we're programmed to fail. And the only reason someone's in a better position than you or where you could be is the 6 inches between you is what they know and what you don't know. And you know what I mean? It's not necessarily if someone's smart or dumb, like, oh, that person's dumb. It's like, well, man, he's just uninformed. He's just never been exposed to it. And it's like, if I give him the information, did that automatically make him smart? No. So no one's really smart or dumb. It's just, what are you exposed to? You know what I mean? And I feel like the things that I learned out here, I can bring it back just the way you do. You're out in Minnesota and you bring it back. You know what I mean? You try to pull back into the community. You try to find a way to be able to add value in it to create change. You know what I mean? And sometimes, are you going to reach everybody? Unfortunately, no. But at least you change one, you change two. You know what I mean? Now there's 3 of you that can change 6, that can change 9, and we can make a bigger impact than significance. You know what I mean? Your life is now going to live beyond you because of the significance and the impact that you've created off of the things that you've been working toward. You know what I mean? So for me, man, I think that's just kind of what I'm looking at. I always plan 5 years in advance. You know what I mean? This is what I want to do. I want to walk away. I want to be able to live in San Antonio, be able to build a sports complex. I want to be able to do that. And people are going to learn leadership, mentorship, or business principles, things that I've learned. If any way, shape, or form I can pour into them, I want to. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. There was another question, no? Or was that it?
Oh yeah, no. That's great too. That just reminded me about there's so much. I think it's so crazy how we just like are here now, when I'm thinking about back to when we play, when you and I were playing together as kids, on Avenue D. I was like having to sneak off toys from the neighbor's yard because we had like no toys. And
Yeah.
now to be at this moment, and then both of us having that same vision of wanting to give back to where we're from, and provide that value and opportunities for the kids that were us back when we were growing up. But you also reminded me of neuroplasticity, and I want to do an episode now on that too. And I feel like that's so important, how malleable our thoughts are, our mindset is, because people don't understand neuroplasticity is where you literally are rewiring your brain with new belief systems, what you feel like you're capable of, with incantations and with things that you tell yourself, and all that. It's literally rewiring your brain and what you feel like you're capable of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think lastly, I had just asked you. It was like, what's next for you, and just the advice for anybody that was trying to step out of the box, anybody that's trying to on the cusp of like not knowing what to do next or how
Yeah.
to, right? Like, and you said
Yeah.
read, you said apply the knowledge. Apply the knowledge that you know, the information that you have. And I feel like another one really important, a common theme right now during our talk is defining their values, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I think 100%. Right? Like people got to define their values, and that way they can learn in what industry or what business they're going to operate in. You know what I'm saying? Because if not, the other thing is too is you learn your values, you learn what's going to make you happy. Then you're like, okay, cool. What business, what industry am I going to operate in? And if you're in Rocktown, is Rocktown or Corpus Christi or Calais or Atlas or whatever, do they have the resources that I would need to make this a reality? And if it's not, then you got to relocate. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with like Rocktown's not good enough or whatever, but you got to be able to relocate to have exposure to those resources that you're going to need. You know what I mean? Because if you don't have those resources, you're not going to do something by yourself barehanded. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to have those resources. And the other thing is too is the industries you want to operate, the business you want to operate in, if you have something that is successful in that industry or has knowledge in that, that's golden, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's an essential piece that is needed so that if you can learn from other people's mistakes, it saves you time, it saves you money, and it saves you frustration. You know what I mean? So those are the other things. It's like if you don't have the resources in the area, hey man, relocate. And you know, I mean, it may not be the best circumstances. You know, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh man, right now I'm having a good time. Hey man, there's never a good time. Life is always going to happen. There's always going to be some BS going on. It's about you being a winner and making it happen. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's funny that you were talking about like going up an Avenue D, man. Like, you know what I mean? I think I can't remember. I know my dad at the time I lived on Avenue D. My dad was locked up. Like, I know Cameron Bruce was too. But I remember your mom, Gracie, and my mom getting along perfectly fine. I was playing with toys outside every once in a while. Diane lived on the street. He would never really come out, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But when he did, he'd come out every once in a while. But it just catching tadpoles in the stupid ditch. You know, we're doing all kinds of silly things, man. And you know, to kind of hear even too, just seeing you on Facebook and stuff, and kind of reconnecting that, just seeing the change. Because I know you've had some ups and some downs, and I think we all have those downs where it feels like you're pushing you 6 feet under, man. And all it takes is a good lineup of a couple of years with the right mindset, the right attitude, the right people, and I mean, you feel like you're floating, you're on cloud nine. You know what I mean? To a certain extent, you know what I mean? And it's just crazy to think about, like, hey man, look at where I was at 10, 15 years ago, and all of a sudden it's like, look at where I'm at now. You know what I mean? And sometimes we're the biggest critic of ourselves. You know what I mean? We're like, man, I'm not good enough or whatever. But then there's times where, I mean, everybody's human. And I look at it like sometimes I'm like, man, I should be here. I should be grossing this much money. I should be doing blah, blah, blah. But then I look back at where I was 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm not, and I'm doing better. And I'm like, hey, man, that's all you really want. Is to build a better version of yourself every single day. So that's kind of, yeah, I mean, resources, I mean, getting on the right people, man. And we talked about that. And it's something so small, man, but there's a lot of value behind it. You know what I mean? If people can just get around the right people to just do that. So, yeah, man, other than that, I mean, I think that's it. Now it's going to come into, hey, what business do you want to do? What industry you want to operate in? And how do you go about it? You know what I mean? And resources are the hugest things. Now, getting around the right people and stuff, but those resources are huge because you need to be able to create comprehension for yourself. You know what I mean? So you can understand. When you can understand, then there's the application. You know what I mean? And that application creates the movement, and the movements will create the change. You know what I mean? Like, but if you don't have the right comprehension behind it, there's going to be a disconnect. You know what I mean? It's almost like whenever we were at school, if the teacher was teaching something that somebody didn't understand, they would go over to like a math lab or whatever, and it just, that teacher would just explain it differently so that person would understand. It didn't mean that they were smart or dumb or they were slow or anything. It was just, hey, the way that person was understanding, they weren't comprehending it. Then based on the context that this teacher was giving, and now the context that this person is giving, gain comprehension of this person, they were able to do it. You know what I mean? It wasn't nothing to do with that person. There's no wrong way of teaching something. Just, we all learn differently. We're all wired differently. You know what I mean? And especially you talk about guys and girls. Like, we have the same brain and all that stuff. But a girl sees a deer and they're like, oh my god, it looks cute. It looks like Bambi. Or a guy's like, hey man, grab a shotgun and we're gonna have some deer jerky. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. We're wired different. You know what I mean? And I think for everybody, man, they're wired different on the success principle of what they want in life. You know what I mean? If someone wants a white picket fence, 2 cars, and a 2-story house, hey man, that's what you want? Cool. I ain't gonna knock that or whatever. You know, but for us as Latinos, man, you know what I mean? Growing up where we did or whatever, I always had the mindset, I always tell my sons, I was like, hey man, we're coming for everything we said we couldn't have. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna take it the right way. We're not going to do it. We're not going to break into people's houses to go take jewelry. We're not going to go steal. We're not going to go sell drugs and help the community for our personal gain. We're going to do things the right way. We're going to put in some work. It's going to be tough. But, I'd rather stay in the pursuit of greatness than sit for the comfort mediocrity, right? And it's being able to know that when you say things like that, are you operating off of obligation or are you operating off of responsibility? You know what I mean? If you really want to be what does he say? You want to be the change in the world, change the people or something like that, right? And we got to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and we judge the world every single day. But hey, we could just, if everybody just look in the damn mirror and took care of ourselves and be selfish for 2 or 3 years and invest into yourself, get a better attitude, invest around the right people, and everybody just did that, it's crazy how the world economy just everything's kind of fell into place. You know what I mean? You hear all this crazy stuff going on, like in Russia and Ukraine and you know what I mean? Even here, a couple of years ago, 2, 3 years ago, we never had protesting and all that stuff. And I really, really feel that people mismanage their time. The reason the world is in chaos is because there's a lack of time. And if people had time, they would get to know their different cultures and different races around them. And they don't necessarily got to accept it, but they need to learn to have time to learn a white race or a black race or whatever in their culture to be able to respect it. You know what I mean? Because they get to know you, you get to know them, they can respect each other and be like, hey man, well, I know why you dress that way, I know why you say what you say, I know why, whatever, cool. And you respect it, but if they respect you, we can live in harmony. It doesn't necessarily mean that they believe what I believe or I believe what they believe, it just means that we respect each other to a point that we can live in unison, right? And I feel like a lot of people are so busy. I mean, you go to the grocery store, you see people literally running in and out of it. You know what I mean? Because they have no time. And sometimes some people just need to chill, man, and just take a step back and learn that, hey, man, if I don't got no time right now, what's going to create time for me? I mean, if I'm a negative person, what's going to make me be positive? If I don't have any money, what's going to help me make some money? You know what I mean? Because we've been doing the same thing. If you're working somewhere and you're not enjoying it, or you're not happy, or you're not having the lifestyle you want, look at somebody that's 10, 15, 20 years older, and you look in the mirror. You know what I mean? Why stay there? It's time to make a change. It's time to make a shift. And, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, everybody's scared to change. And it's a 5-letter word that scares the crap out of people. The only people that like change is a 2-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get to a point where that change becomes your norm, where you're stretching yourself. And in the beginning, you might feel like that. In the beginning, you might suck at it. But guess what? Like anything else, you're going to get better at it. And anybody got a job for the first time. Their first 2 or 3 days, they sucked at it. And 3 or 4 months later, now they're training somebody else, and they got better at it. So, I mean, we as human beings can learn anything, right? And we can get better and develop a skill set. It doesn't necessarily take a talent to do what you're doing, or do what I'm doing, or do what Tina's doing, or anybody. It doesn't take a talent, just take a skill and some hard work. And if you keep doing something long enough, you're going to get better at it. Just like you said, Kevin Howard, they were like, oh, overnight success. And I've been busting my butt for 18 years. You didn't know that? You know what I mean? So, any comedian, Jay Curry, there's a lot of them that have been putting in the work. Actors, actresses, they've been putting in work. Singers. You had Justin Bieber was going around, literally playing just out on the sidewalks, playing outside of radio stations just so he could play his music. And then you look at him now and it's like, dang, dude, he had that one song, he's been busting his butt for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You know what I mean? Every single day, and you can't knock or say they got lucky. You know what I mean? And the people that say people get lucky, they're just lazy. You know what I mean? They're just 100% lazy. They want to win the lottery ticket. And, I mean, you can win the lottery, but you have no financial education. You're going to deplete all that money anyways and go back to where you were, right? So everything, lifestyle is always going to come back to the mindset level, 100%. Whether you come to a lot of money or you don't, if you don't have the right mindset, you're going to deplete it or you're going to make more or whatever. But that's why it's very important. Everything that you talk about, Bobby, is mindset, man. The books you read, the people you read yourself, the mindset is the most important thing, and the belief factor. You know what I mean? Do you believe you can do better? Do you believe it? If you don't believe it, then it's never going to happen. No matter how much context or how much details we can say on this damn phone call, ain't nobody going to do nothing if they don't believe. You know what I mean? And that's why I love outside. I have my First You Must Believe shirts. I know Mr. Cochran, right, for the baseball team, they used to bring life to the town because that was like the only thing that everybody agreed upon, or everybody that could do on a Tuesday or Friday night. You know what I mean? We travel to San Antonio, we travel to Austin, we do all these things, but that slogan is so close to my heart, like First You Must Believe. And I always ask myself, when I'm doing my gun out work, when I'm doing something like, do I believe this is going to be a success? Do I believe that we can add value or purpose behind this? And the answer is no, then I got to fix it. You know what I mean? Because if I don't believe it, then I don't just do things just to do it.